Let's go, Rams! I know you're eager to see the Los Angeles Rams back on the field. I am too. But before the season officially kicks off, some big news might be on the way. I'll give you all the details right now, without wasting any time. But before we start, make sure you hit that like button if you're a true fan who's sticking with the Rams all the way. If you can, drop a comment saying, "Go Rams! Let's get to the Super Bowl." Speaking of the Super Bowl, I have to admit, I'm confident the Rams can make it there this year, especially after hearing about the news I'm about to share with you. First, I want to talk about Aaron Donald. Yes, my friends, he's closer than ever to a decision. According to the latest update from Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk, the timeline for Donald's decision has shifted slightly. The initial expectation was that something might happen early in the week, but the focus has now moved to later in the week. That doesn't necessarily mean something has gone wrong. A decision like this is hugely important for Donald. Returning to the NFL after time away isn't something a player takes lightly, especially someone who has already achieved so much in his career. If Donald decides to come back, he'll be committing to another grueling NFL season, so naturally, he needs to be completely comfortable with that choice. For the Rams, the timing is also becoming interesting because the preseason schedule is arriving. The expectation discussed is that a decision could come before Los Angeles takes the field against the Kansas City Chiefs in its preseason opener. Nobody should expect Donald to return simply to stand on the sideline or play a tiny role. The possibility being discussed is much bigger than that. Mike Florio mentioned a plan that could eventually have Donald playing around 30 to 40 snaps in the Week 1 game. That would be a significant workload and would show that, if Donald returns, the Rams would still view him as an important part of their defense. There is another reason for the excitement. Donald has continued training, and recent workout footage has kept the conversation alive. He was seen working alongside Braden Fisk and Desjuan Johnson, and the speed and agility Donald displayed became another reason for Rams fans to wonder just how much he might still have left. Nobody can guarantee what Donald would look like after returning to NFL action. Training is different from playing an actual game, but the idea here is clear. If Aaron Donald decides to come back, expectations will immediately become very high. While everybody waits for that decision, the Rams have also made smaller roster moves. Daniel Rickert was brought in as an edge defender and will have an opportunity to compete during the preseason. The road to the final roster will not be easy, but these games and practices are exactly where a player fighting for a spot can make himself noticed. Sean McVay is another addition. The cornerback entered the NFL as a fourth-round pick in 2021 and previously contributed on special teams. After suffering an Achilles injury in 2023 and later spending time with Jacksonville, he now gets another opportunity with Los Angeles. Like Rickert, he faces an uphill battle, but the preseason gives him a chance to show the coaching staff what he can provide. At the same time, Dre Norwood was waived with an injury settlement. That move opened another chapter in the competition for depth, as the Rams continue adjusting their roster before the regular season. And this is where the story becomes even more important, because training camp can only tell a coaching staff so much. Following training camp, the Los Angeles Rams are set to take a major step in their preparations for the season, with 2 joint practices and 3 preseason games. These opportunities will mark the first time the Rams go against another team in this phase of preparation, giving the coaches a much better way to evaluate the roster. Training camp matters. Players compete every day. Coaches install their systems, and position battles begin to take shape. But there is always one problem. Teammates know each other. After practicing against the same players repeatedly, tendencies become familiar. A defensive back starts understanding the routes a receiver likes to run. An offensive lineman learns the moves of the pass rusher across from him. Quarterbacks become familiar with the defense they see every day. That changes when another team lines up across the field. The joint practices and preseason games will give Los Angeles something different. The Rams will finally see how their players respond to unfamiliar opponents, different techniques and situations that cannot be completely recreated during regular training camp practices. And as the team moves into this more physically demanding part of the preseason, there are several important lessons from training camp that should be kept in mind. One of the clearest is that the defensive additions have been as good as advertised. Myles Garrett was dominant throughout camp. That alone is a major development for a defense that wants to become one of the strongest parts of this Rams team. Garrett's presence creates problems because an offense cannot simply ignore where he is lined up. A player capable of consistently winning his matchup forces everyone on the other side to think about how they are going to handle him. But Garrett was not the only addition making an impression. Trent McDuffie showed the versatility and playmaking ability that have made him one of the NFL's best. Having a defensive player who can handle different responsibilities gives the coaching staff more freedom. Instead of building everything around protecting one weakness, the defense can become more aggressive and flexible. Then there is Jalen Watson. Watson showed during camp that he could cover every type of pass catcher the Rams put in front of him. That is exactly what you want to see from a defensive back during this stage of the year. The real tests against other teams are still coming, but what happened in camp was certainly encouraging. More importantly, the defense seemed to get stronger as camp continued. During the latter portions of training camp, the defensive side began to dominate, and Garrett, McDuffie, and Watson were a major reason for that improvement. When several talented players arrive at the same time, the impact can go far beyond their individual performances, and that might actually be the most exciting part of what happened. The biggest impact of these additions may be what they have done for the players who were already on the field. Emmanuel Forbes Jr. showed noticeable development during camp. Com Kinchens did the same. Their progress deserves attention because improvement from returning players can be just as valuable as bringing in new talent. Football is a team sport in the truest sense, and defensive players depend heavily on the people around them. When the coverage is stronger, a pass rush can have more time to reach the quarterback. When pressure arrives quickly, defensive backs do not have to cover receivers for as long. When players trust the teammates around them, they can play faster instead of hesitating. That is why the teammates surrounding Forbes and Kinchens deserve some credit for what we saw. The Rams did not simply add individual talent. Based on what happened during training camp, they added players who appear capable of raising the level of the entire unit. Now comes the real test. Can that training camp success continue when the opponent changes? That is exactly why these joint practices are going to be so valuable. Garrett will get different offensive linemen trying to stop him. McDuffie and Watson will see unfamiliar receivers and route combinations. Forbes and Kinchens will have to communicate against an offense that has not spent camp practicing against them. If the defense continues to look as strong against outside competition as it did late in camp, the excitement surrounding this group is only going to grow. But defense is not the only area where training camp gave us an important clue. The quarterback situation behind Matthew Stafford is also becoming clearer, and right now Stetson Bennett appears likely to be the Rams' second quarterback. Sean McVay has practically confirmed the direction of the competition through the way the Rams are approaching the preseason. Ty Simpson is expected to play in preseason action, while Bennett's participation remains uncertain. That detail is important because we have seen McVay use a similar formula before. When Jimmy Garoppolo was the Rams' backup quarterback, he did not play in the preseason. That history gives us a strong clue about how McVay could be handling Bennett now. If the same approach continues in 2026, Bennett would receive significant work during the joint practices, while Simpson handles more of the preseason game action. That would make a lot of sense. Joint practices can provide a veteran or backup quarterback with valuable competitive reps without putting him through an entire preseason game. Meanwhile, the third quarterback gets the game opportunities needed for the coaching staff to evaluate his development. And based on training camp itself, Bennett also appeared to have another advantage: consistency. Bennett looked more settled during camp, while Simpson is still adjusting to life in the NFL. That does not mean the competition has to be completely over, but it does mean Simpson has work to do if he wants to change the current direction. Adjusting to the NFL takes time, Everything happens faster. Decisions have to come quickly. Windows close sooner, defensive players disguise what they are doing, and quarterbacks have to process information while pressure is coming toward them. For Simpson, these upcoming practices and preseason games are therefore extremely important. If he wants to become Stafford's primary backup, simply looking comfortable will probably not be enough. He will have to give the coaching staff a reason to reconsider the order. In other words, Simpson needs to put on a show. That starts in practice. He has to demonstrate that the progress is real, that he can command the offense, and that he can make good decisions consistently. Then he has to carry that into the preseason games, where every snap becomes part of his evaluation. For Bennett, the situation is different. If his limited preseason involvement follows the same pattern McVay previously used with Garoppolo, it would be another strong indication that the Rams already see him as Stafford's backup. So now I want to hear from you, Rams fans. Which development matters most to you right now? Are you focused on Aaron Donald and the possibility of seeing him back in a Rams uniform? Are you more excited to see what this new-look defense can do against another team? And do you believe Stetson Bennett has already done enough to be Matthew Stafford's backup? Or can Ty Simpson change the conversation with a huge preseason? The waiting is almost over. Training camp gave us plenty to talk about, but now the Rams are entering the stage where these questions finally start getting answered on the field.